All right, Hammond, welcome back. Here for another powerful episode to break down some TikTok and some meta strategy this week. Let's do it.
Adding episode. So yeah, TikTok and Meta, the biggest topic. What you do.
It's an interesting kind of concept at the moment that I find the community a lot in terms of the event we had recently. There's a lot of people that are using TikTok a lot more. There's a lot of people that are thinking they need to get off Meta and they need to shift all of their focus onto creating content. There's a lot of reasons maybe to believe that, I think, you know what I mean? Like a lot of our clients have had some amazing results on TikTok, just organic completely, no ad spend and no kind of like media budget, and they've sold out their product ranges. So super excited to kind of break this down and have a look at, I guess, this landscape in terms of the strategy behind how do we use TikTok in today's marketplace? How do we use Meta? Is Meta going to survive? You know what I mean? Like, is everyone just going to move on to TikTok and just start creating content? What's your take on the situation? First things first.
So yeah, first, like I still am like looking at Meta as the main platform. I don't think again, I look at TikTok as a very, very good platform for acquisitions, but I don't see it replacing Meta. I actually think Meta that they kind of almost like copying Meta to a certain level.
Mm.
So for me, if you look at the structure of the ad account, everything we're doing, it's the same thing. Just TikTok is a much, I would say, younger platform, a little bit unstable in my opinion versus Meta. So my view on it, it's probably still like in being the pro Meta 100% versus TikTok, although I
Got
see
it.
the opportunity.
Got it. Got it.
I'm
And
thinking,
you go.
yeah, so just in terms of like, I'm thinking always like about the two platforms, like just comparing them. So they're very similar. So I'm curious about a little bit more your positioning because I know you're more into like leveraging new platforms and kind of like scaling when you're in that kind of first wave. So I'm curious about your view on it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's really unique. You know what I mean? Like if I think about some of the clients recently that have used like the TikTok platform, and they've got like no experience in like building content, they've got no experience in building a business really, and so they've like launched a lot of content on TikTok. And when I say a lot, I mean probably, geez, 100 pieces of content, maybe 150 over like a few months, and a few pieces of content have gone viral, and then because of a few of those pieces of content that have gone viral, they've sold out of like over 40, over $50,000, over like $20,000 worth of units. And so the thing that I like about it is that, like, regardless of what you do, like, I don't think there's a world where that exists or you can do that on Meta. Like, you can't go on to Meta and be like, I'm just going to post a few organic pieces of content on my feed and I'm going to sell out. You know what I mean? Like, there isn't the same kind of like ability to be able to literally like post maybe like 100 pieces of content and make 40 grand. I'm not sure what that's my position. I'm kind of like, there's a lot of opportunity on the platform, and I think people need to be taking it very seriously. And I think it's almost like a little bit of the way that I see it is it's almost like TikTok's trying to acquire as many users onto the platform as possible. So their algorithm is like adjusted to be like very aggressive, right? In terms of like it's getting you in front of tons of people, right? In terms of awareness and getting eyeballs onto your brand, discovery-based platform. And because it's trying to acquire a lot of, people or users, it's like an arms race, and they're just like racing to get these users on the platform. And so they're giving away, audience. And if I think back to Facebook or Instagram when they first were doing a similar thing, it was the same. Like, I had a massive Instagram following years and years and years ago when I used to post like shirtless pictures of myself. And it was insane. Like, my content used to get so much, you know what I mean? I'd post like one photo and I would get like 600, 700 likes, and I would have like this small, I don't know, 20,000 followers. And I was like, this is insane. And I kind of see some similarities in terms of like what they're doing to grab the market share at the moment. And that's why I'm kind of like, it makes sense to pay attention to it. That's kind of what I think about it at the moment. Yeah.
I think it just you need to think about it from another perspective. Like what you're mentioning here, like it's mainly organic first, not paid ads. I
Correct.
look at it from an angle of like I need to control my destiny when I'm running ads or kind of doing something like why actually I focus on paid ads is because you can control it. Organic, if I was like launching a new business, I'm thinking about it like, hey, I'm and I need to get results, I'll probably go with something I can control. So for me, TikTok,
Mm.
it's a good platform, good for what you just mentioned. You can actually position like new things, you can dominate. There's like opportunity to really push in the organic. But is it stable enough? Can you predict it to that level? So if I'm coming in and I'm thinking about, let's say, I'm launching my business, new in this, I'll probably think about Meta a lot because you can control your destiny. I'm thinking about, can I have that guaranteed path versus publishing some content that say I don't have that expertise, then it's going to be more challenging. So my view on it is kind of that balance in terms of control versus not controlled environment in terms of TikTok.
Mm.
But I'm curious about your views on like, do you go with TikTok as opportunity organic, or you're kind of looking at it from paid as well in terms of both? What would
Oh
you say?
yeah. I mean, I think it's used only as organic. Like I think if you try and I mean every single time I've used like the TikTok paid, it's horrendous. Like it's horrendous. I don't think the platform maybe they're like optimizing for that and they might get to that level. But I think the real focus from that platform is literally just the way that I think about it. And I've been saying this for years as I would say like 4 or 5 years ago when the platform was like, in earlier stages, infancy, and we were like posting a lot of content on there. I see it as this opportunity to, because it's like, if you think about it, like, so on Meta, right, you need to test creatives, right? Every single good quality business that runs Meta platform, Meta kind of campaigns, it's like a portion of the spend would always be put towards testing, right? And so it's like, okay, that's true. Why do we test? Well, because everybody knows that the quality of the creative determines the cost of the acquisition and the volume of sales. If you get onto one of those winners, it's like game over, good night, and good night, Irene, or something they say. And it's like you can really scale, right? And so it's like, okay, cool. So if that's true, and the game that I'm playing here is like, how can I find the winners of creative as quickly as possible? Then I'm thinking like, okay, so I can do testing, rapid testing, and large scale testing two different ways. I can spend my money, right, and potentially win, potentially lose, gamble, or I can push all of that content right onto TikTok, and I can just like post volumes of content 3, 4, 5 times a day on this platform, zero cost, just time. Okay, then once I see a piece of content on TikTok start to actually get some volume of views or engagement, whatever it does, it starts to perform. Theoretically, that piece of content should perform quite well in the Meta platform. So I think that using the TikTok ads manager, rubbish. I would not, recommend it. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that. I think it's really, really, really average. But in terms of like using the platform specifically, I think it's that strategy, right? It's test your content, right? Use it to actually see what's working faster, more budget conservative. It is going to take longer, certainly. Take those kind of like creatives that have, proven themselves through, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it might be, kind of views or pieces of engagement, roll that back over into your Meta platform and then push it live. And it's like, that's going to be a lot more of a powerful situation than, and it's case by case as well, because like, hey, like some people don't have all the time in the world to sit there and make content. You know what I mean? They just don't. So it's like, but that's what I think is one of the most effective strategies right now today to get eyeballs on your content. Take the pieces of content that win, push it over into the paid situation, and then really like amplify.
I think it's again, like, don't get me wrong, this is a good strategy to test creatives. Like, you can really do this, but for me, the limitation of doing this exact strategy is I've seen cases where, let's say, they publish 10, 20 creatives, and then they're all kind of like doing the same. Like, they didn't really good content. So with Meta, you can at least position it in front of an audience where you can see more traction in general because you're paying for it. So there's kind of that gap sometimes in terms of speed and information, particularly when the business is starting. Like, when you're scaling, what you're mentioning here is like really leveraging the platform to save on some of the paid ads and
Correct.
testing consistently. What I'm looking at is a person starting out, they might not even to action on TikTok to read the numbers or even be able to understand like what is a good like a winning ad on TikTok versus let's say Meta. So that's going to be in my opinion kind of the challenge, and that's why when you have a paid ad, although you're paying a premium, so I understand like you're going to be paying much more, it's going to be more expensive, but you're going to get the information fast. And for me, speed
Mm,
equal decision making. So if I put money in, so I'm looking at, can I get this information tomorrow? And I can actually engage and change something around in my business. And also you mentioned something very important, volume. So
mm,
volume in creators. Volume in like TikTok is very demanding. Like I probably like I know you know this, but they probably the audience that they look at, hey, TikTok and just like push one or two a week or maybe one or two a month in terms of creatives.
mm,
TikTok, that's not the standards. Like you're walking around in a marketplace where people are pushing content every minute, so or every second. So your competition level in content is like a whole other thing versus Meta, where you can work with less content because people are not expecting, as you mentioned, like Instagram, Meta, it's much more or Facebook, they're much more competitive in the algo in terms of organic that you don't have that
mm.
same push versus TikTok. So I'm kind of like not say like I would say
Yeah.
not sure, but I would say that I focus more on paid ads because of that. So this strategy would
Mm,
work, but it would, as you mentioned, for specific brands.
mm. No, I definitely agree with that. I think people, the challenge with TikTok is definitely the creative volume. You know what I mean? Like you have to produce large volumes of creative to really like have a win. Like even if I think about like my wife, she's Naira, she's worked on like, putting some content on TikTok. She's like, I really want to, start to build a TikTok profile. And it's interesting because, she spends, some quality time on like building a few pieces of creative, publishes them, does all the right things. And, they go okay. And she's like, geez, like I haven't gone viral yet. And it's like, you need
The
to
waiting
probably
game.
post like 400 times more pieces of content rather than like I've posted 10 times or whatever it might be. So it's definitely challenging. I think the volume can be overwhelming, definitely. But I also think that the thing that is very beneficial, I think. So like I recall when like years ago, I think there's a different position. So say for example, like when you're building an audience-based product, right? So say for example, you've got your TikTok kind of like audience, right? And you feel connected to those people, right? You're like, I see them in the comments, I see them in the DMs, I'm messaging them, I'm contacting them, and so you have like a higher degree of like care factor almost for the audience. And so I feel like what happens as well is you also want to, because there's more closeness to your customer, you also want to create a better product, right? And if you look at, for example, a good side-by-side example, I don't think you'd ever see a drop shipper, right, that was just spinning up like some like ordinary quality product. I don't think you'd ever see a dropshipper pushing organic TikTok, building a brand, building an audience, because his product would be so shit, And so I think the constraint that having like an audience that like loves you and trusts you, that it kind of like forces on you is like, well, you need to deliver a good quality product. These
Like they know
people
you.
they know you. It's like you feel a little bit more kind of like almost like indebted to them. And I think that like if I look at where the market's going overall, I'm like, shitty products are getting squeezed out. Shitty brands are getting squeezed out. Shitty customer service is getting squeezed out. People that don't care for their customers, they're going to get squeezed out, right? So it's like the movement towards this kind of like audience. Like if we look at the Ecom Capital audience as an example, like the actual community itself, it's like the reason that we have so many amazing clients and so many amazing members in the community is like the team, you and I, we really fucking care, right? It's like we really, really, really care. And so when we go to the events, when we see people in the coaching calls, when we see people engaging in the community, they're an extension of how we care for them, right? And so it's like that could not exist, and that kind of community would not exist if it was just like okay, well, let's just, give people shit product. Let's just give them minimum attention, and let's hope that they get good results, and let's hope that they leave reviews, and let's hope that they give us referrals. You know what I mean? It's like none of
Like
those things would happen.
you're asking, but you're not working on kind of like the delivering, which is the main thing. I think this is actually like just a point on this because I know that it's true. Like in the just in the e-commerce space in the last 10 years with dropshipping, the first wave, they didn't do anything. They just did like
Correct.
ads and they didn't deliver the good product. They didn't care about customer service. I remember some brand they were using just a Gmail to respond, like just like a Gmail
Yes.
like inbox. And you wait a few days to even get an answer, and then 3 months you switch your brand. It was the case, like literally.
Yeah.
Then this kind of changed into more branded dropshipping, which was a little bit better, but not necessarily like still, let's say, something that's really good. It was just they deliver within 10 days, 20 days, but they still don't provide that experience entirely. And then Meta actually came in and were like, hey, we're going to do the Facebook page feedback score. So you're going to be out of the platform if you don't have a good, let's say, customer service. So Meta actually, they were thinking about this. Like they were like, this doesn't make sense. We don't want to have our customers, they kind of run like they're going to put in this as a meta problem rather than
Mm,
the brand. So they actually stepped in and like, we're going to do a Facebook page score and we're going to rank you based on if you deliver a
mm,
good customer service. And I've
mm,
seen probably 2020, a lot of brands actually completely out because of that. And they were
mm.
like, hey, we need to launch a new brand, rebrand, launch a new page. It was really a big shift actually in 2020, if I remember well, 2020, 2021. And then
Yeah.
right now, Meta, they look at your experience, they look at your conversion rate, they look at your CPMs are a reflection of that. Like if you look
Yeah.
at really the CPMs, they see is your audience actually converting? Are they doing that? Like are they complaining? And if they're complaining and they're not converting because Meta they have like their own algorithm looking at that, they're gonna punish you. You're gonna have a higher
Mm,
CPMs.
mm,
So
mm.
this is something to look at just from the platform. They actually also doing this move. Amazon, same thing. All these
Mm.
platforms, they're not allowing you to advertise if you're not at that level that you're just mentioning in terms of
Yeah.
branded, positioning. So yeah.
Correct. So and so like when I think about that, I'm like, okay, so the platforms are looking after the customer more, essentially, because there's been too many like brands and too many people that have come on the platform and then that they've kind of abused the customer. Unfortunately, that's just what's happened. And so it's like Meta, and I think Google does something probably not to the same degree as Meta. I know Meta is probably the main platform that really came in with like the feedback score, and like you would get, banned very quickly if you delivered like, poor quality products. So it's like, that's the movement, right? And then we've got kind of like this idea of like people building an audience and then being able to monetize the audience. So it's like having that kind of like TikTok, I wouldn't say TikTok first approach, but I think that so I know that previously a lot of people would get into like the e-commerce space because they were like, well, I can build a business and I can be like a faceless brand. I don't want to like really like have anything to do with the brand. I don't want to connect with it. I don't want to, connect with my audience. I don't want to be seen as the owner. Maybe I'll just sell some products that like I don't want to have much association with. And so I think you can still do that today. I wouldn't say there's anything against that. But when I look at some of our most successful clients, they are people, and I interviewed a guy yesterday, day before yesterday. Perfect example. So he has a brand here in Australia. It's called Tropika, right? And they are a supplement brand. They're sold in like 77 countries around the world. They've got like 25,000 five-star reviews. They do multiple 8 figures a year in sales, right? And it's fascinating because we had this interview and he was so focused on the product and the customer, right? From day one, right? And I look at like his obsession with that product and his obsession with like how much he cared about the customer. And also he was the person that he solved his own problem for, if that makes sense. He wasn't just getting,
Like
we've had this conversation like the missionary versus the mercenary, right? We've had this
exactly.
conversation and it's like, he came into this, how can I solve my chronic fatigue syndrome? This is literally ruining my life. I can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm so tired. The doctors don't know what's wrong. They can't give me any form of insight. You must just be chronically fatigued. Here's some painkillers. this should be able to deal with it. And so he went on this mission to go and solve that problem. And so for the last like decade, he's been building this company on the back of that. And if I think about some of the people in the community that have had, you know, great success, they also follow a similar route in terms of like, yes, they definitely want to make some profit. Yes, they definitely want to build a great company, and they're quite aggressive in their targets and goals. However, it's also like, I've had this problem, and this is Reese, Amanda, Melissa, any of these people, Melissa, it's like, I've had this problem. This literally just, it grinds my gears that someone hasn't solved this. And they're like, I'm going to set out to fix it. And so then they do that, and then they become like the advocate behind the brand. They become like the face of the brand. And if they can lean into that more and more, and build like some trusted, it's like we had this conversation with Reese, I think on one of the previous episodes, where it was like, so what did you do at the start of the brand when you launched it? And he was like, well, I did a lot of founder-led content. Okay, and what are you doing now? Oh, I'm just doing statics. Okay, so let's go back to what you did at the start. It's like, why would you stop doing that? And so it's like, I think it's like the more that founders can lean more into that kind of like, geez, I'm a bit awkward. Hey, like, hello, like, what's happening? Like, oh, geez, I've never really done one of these things before, but I want to share my story, and they can get out and do those things. It builds a lot more trust, you know? So I think the TikTok platform, it forces that, because if you try and go on TikTok and try and be salesy, you try and be like disingenuous, you try and just like push product, it will flop. It will absolutely flop, right? So it's a really good conversation. Yeah.
I would say that again, I still see this value from the organic. Don't get me wrong. It's like I believe in organic, but I would say this, like if I was to do content on TikTok, I still need to look at the paid ads and keep in mind that paid ads, you can also push the same content that we just talked about. You can actually push that in front of an audience and convert them.
Mm.
So think about it as, you know, you need an identity in those platforms. It's almost like when you create a new brand, you need to be alive in TikTok. You need to be alive in, let's say, on those platforms. But I would look at in terms of focus, like I'm launching, I really want to make sure that I get result, and I will do this content, like I actually film it, record it, push it into all these platforms. And there are tools, by the way, with AI where you can just publish everything and you don't have to really worry about, let's say, the repurposing part, but I
Mm.
will look at paid ads. I want to control my destiny. I want to really get in front of people, and I could use my content, me talking to an audience and obviously converting them, because that's the future. I actually see it the same way. We need to look at like, what's the next thing? The next thing is how good you are as a personal brand to
Yep.
drive
Mm.
like the product. Because if you're not a good, I would say, like marketer in general, and you don't have a good position, and you mentioned this, let's say the avatar. When I have this problem and I can solve it, it's almost like, are you a good, I'd say marketer in terms of just talking to an audience.
Yeah.
And the more you believe it, the more you can, and if you have actually the problem, you can actually solve it for your audience. You're going to be more of like convincing, I would say, to a certain extent.
Mm.
But
Mm.
the idea here is, if you're a founder launching a brand, you should think about what's the value that you have in you. And if you're actually positioning
Mm.
yourself and you're a good marketer, you can convert an audience just because you know the problem. So I think that's kind of your position, correct?
Mm. Oh, absolutely. It's exactly that. It's like, and it's challenging as well, because I think that like it's a learned skill. You know, I don't think that people like naturally are like, wow, I can tell my story really well, or like, wow, I can articulate like the problem that I'm trying to solve, or you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't come naturally to people. So it's like it's something that the only part that I think, I wouldn't say comes naturally, but makes it easier is, and this is the reason that I'm so passionate about people solving problems that are relevant to them, is because they can talk about it from like an experiential type of. It's like, geez, this is what happened to me. Like I can tell my story, and that's the thing where if we look at, for example, like AI or any of the things that are happening in terms of like replicating and like duplicating people's content, people's brands, all those types of things. The thing that can't ever be like shifted or removed or duplicated or copied is like your own your story, like the experience, like the personal kind of like track record of what you've done. And so I think the reason that some of these founders in our community are crushing it with that type of a background is it's because it doesn't require them to manufacture certain strategies to sell. Like, it's like, okay, so how do I communicate what's a hook? How do I say a hook? Okay, these are the words for a hook. Okay, say this, say this. Now they say these like scripted words that sound really disingenuous, and the audience is like, ooh, that sounds like they're trying to sell me some shit.
But
You
still
know,
do it. Just I still believe you can still do it. Like I can still not say manufacture, but I can look at the market, the angles, and I can still like we can still push content. Like really convincing.
of
But
course.
it's probably the belief level. Like I know when you're believing in something versus when you're just saying a script. But just for any person listening to this, like, hey, I don't absolutely want to appear in front of the camera. You can hire people and you can really
Mm,
position it good. Like I still
mm.
believe that, like you can do this. But as a founder, you're gonna have that advantage. It's almost like what's your edge, right? If you're thinking about, hey,
Correct,
like
correct.
I can really position myself. I'm good. I like to talk to the camera. I can convince people. That's your edge. But if that's not your edge, I still believe you can do it without. You can hire
Yeah,
people that are, they're gonna do this, and you can actually look at their content, prepare it to make sure it's alive, I would say, to a certain level.
yeah.
It's kind of like convincing. I don't say convincing, but just good marketing, and you can still make it. Like I've seen brands that do this. You don't have to be the face of the brand. So that's kind of my view
Mm,
on it, but
mm.
it's an edge. So
Well, I
if
mean,
you
even
have
if
it, it's an absolute win.
it's not a necessary component. Like even if we look at like Basu as an example, like I think we were on that call recently last week. Last week I think it was, and we were talking about the creatives, right? And so it's like all the creatives at the moment that we're running are just like statics. You know what I mean? And it's like there's no founder-led content. There's no like person to the camera talking about the story. But I also know that we experimented with the idea of this, which I'm super curious to test. And maybe we need to really push Naira into this over the next month and get her to do some founder-led content and see a bit of a side-by-side analysis of like, is the static situation with no like a face right now. I would say it's a lot more of a faceless brand, essentially. Like Basu is like, there's not really like, this is me, this is the problem I'm solving, this is what we're trying to do for you. At the moment it's kind of like, static, and people can connect with all of the people in the ads, definitely. So I think this is going to be a really cool kind of like, maybe we have this conversation in like 30 days or 60 days and we're like, right, okay, so we did the founder-led content and this is what happened. So it's interesting, it's very interesting. Yeah.
I actually was pushing, like, I think I pushed her, like, like, I really want her to do this because I believe that it's going to help the brand. Like, actually, I want to position this as an edge. That's what I mean.
Yes.
Like, what I meant,
Yes.
like, you need to do it, not necessarily, but it's going to be an advantage. It's almost like you're coming to, let's say, a war. You want to have the best, like, equipment and kind of bring in all the like I would say all the things that you can push to win versus
Yeah.
you can also strategize. So I think about it like that. It's really about strategy and it's really an advantage for your business.
Well, yeah, I love the analogy because it's like you're going into battle, and so it's like you're going into battle, and you've looked at all of the potential weapons in your inventory, and then you look at a really good sharp weapon, and you're like, oh nah, I'll just leave that one. It's like you don't.
Yeah,
You want to
take something
grab that
else.
thing and you want to bring it into battle and you want to win. It's like that's the game. Yeah.
It's really looking at like your inventory of assets and your edge. Like sometimes organic for you or positioning yourself, that's a massive
Mm.
thing. That's like almost like a nuclear weapon. So you really
Yeah.
can really push this. Or as I mentioned, you need to like if you don't have an affinity with your brand or you kind of like you're not able to do that, you can still, run content and bring in a person and position them even if it's an influencer as an ambassador and just like have them kind of do that for you. So there are
Mm.
alternatives. It's not just the
Mm.
only path, I need to do this or it's done. I've seen brands, they can operate with multiple influencers and they just push them more rather than the like a person. And it's still a good positioning.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing as well. Like even so, it's like I'm saying a lot of these things, and as I'm saying them, I'm observing some things that we are seeing in the community and seeing with our clients' brands at the very same time. An organic audience perspective, on a personal level, like for Econ Capital or myself, or through my own personal brand, like there's not exactly tremendous amounts of like audience building or pushing on that. Like we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on advertising, and so it's like, okay, right? Still very effective. You know what I mean? And the thing is with it, you can do both. I think I think the thing that people need to be really conscious of is you can build brand through paid ads, right? It's like if you're advertising, the concept is this is like when you optimize solely for like brand building or brand awareness or people knowing you or building audience, it's a lot longer generally. You know what I mean? You're building this relationship, you're building this kind of like trust, and it takes time. And so a lot of the time when people launch, I saw a post from I think it was Martin last week, I think it was, and so he just pushed ads live. I think it was like Wednesday, and started making sales. I think for like straight away, like immediately afterwards. And so
First
it's like
24 hours.
exactly. And so it's like I don't think that you would have that rapid response with posting a piece of content on TikTok, as an example. You know what I mean? Like you're building a relationship, you're building a brand. People need to start to, oh yeah, I kind of like this person. Oh yeah, interesting. They talk about some unique things. Oh, that's an interesting kind of like way they spoke about their product or like the problem they have. And so like the time aspect for people who, and this is exactly why we're doing this recently with this Ecom Capital private service we're offering as well, is like we want to help you with that and take care of your media buying, simply because if you're time poor, right, and you don't have all the capacity to sit and create content all day every day, it's like there are still multitudes of strategies you can use from a paid ads perspective to win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been always looking at like what's the value of the paid ads. It's actually controlling your destiny. I keep saying this because you want to make sure that you get there. So for me, paid
Mm,
ads almost like you're not going to rely on luck. You're going to put in the money, you're going to get there. So do you want the path of instability, or you want the predicted path where I can spend 5,000, 10,000, $10,000 a day and get that same reach every single time with some
mm,
consistency that I can plan on, to my cash flow, to my business, unless you're extremely advanced in content and you're just like almost like a media company. As I know this was mentioned in the event, but you should do that by default with even the paid ads. But that kind of capacity and stability would only happen with paid ads. And I've rarely seen a business that would just keep the momentum just organic and they don't include any
mm,
kind of paid ads. It's very rare.
mm,
So I would say control your destiny, run the ads, do the organic. Both
mm.
massive power.
And the thing is, as well, to this point, it's like I've seen a lot of like brands or personal brands or audiences that have been built, and they might have an extremely kind of like evangelic, very, very, very like super enthusiastic. They're very loyal to the audience, and then the moment the brand, the personal brand, or the founder, or the face behind the brand tries to sell a product to that audience, it tanks. You know what I mean? Like it flops, and they're like, "How could you sell to us?" I see this all the time with influencers. I see this all the time with like YouTube creators. They build this audience, and they're like, "Wow, now it's time to monetize. Let's do
Yes.
it." And they try and do it, and then it flops. And so I think like a lot of these things I'm looking at from the perspective of like I'm like, what is objectively true or what is objectively right maybe in the current landscape. And I think it's just like there's a lot of like dependencies, like if you're time poor, right, and you don't have all the time in the world to create content and be like a face of the brand, it's like paid ads you probably need to like lean more on and do at the very same time. You still need to like make the damn time to create content, because it's like
You-
whether you're using paid ads or the organic situation, it's like the content you create is going to determine your destiny, as you say. You know,
But
yeah,
but but I still believe also like there's a con to really relying on yourself to sell too much, because that would decrease a little bit the value in terms of exit. Because if the brand is alive because you're just like the face of the brand, potentially that could cause some limitation. So I would still
yeah,
position. It's an asset. You can leverage this. It's an edge. You can push it, but you need to also have something else that you're pushing on the same time. This again, even
mm,
if I look at all the angles, but I would say, you need to run the paid ads, position yourself, get the sale in the next 24 hours rather than wait that week. And this is the case we
yeah,
mentioned with I think we mentioned like, can you do this? Like, let's say you launch your business, get a sale within the first 24 hours with organic, maybe, but what are the odds? Probably
Yeah.
much lower.
Yeah, yeah. I think the speed aspect is definitely quite unique. Like if you, and especially with some of the tools that are available. Like I know we're building these partnerships at the moment with like Foreplay, that platform where you can jump in there and you can see your competitors, like best performing advertising. You can take that best performing advertising. The AI will create the script from it. You can literally, create ads from like best performing creatives, and then from that you can, take those ads, push them live, and assuming they perform at a similar level to like what maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of spend has proven, it's like you can very quickly turn around like winning ads. And be able to like be in a position where you're like, I push ads live tomorrow, we convert, and I think as I'm thinking about this as well, I'm like, the paid ads aspect, like if you get it from a speed perspective, I don't think you could, from an organic perspective. Let's just hypothetically say like I created like 4 or 5 ads tomorrow, 10, 15 ads tomorrow, and I copied some like best performing ads of my competitors. I rolled them into, Ads Manager, pushed them live. If they started to perform, like I could tomorrow or the next day go from like $1,000 a day to 5,000, and I could scale those things so quickly. And you could take your company revenues and go from like, I don't know, 100 grand a month to like 500 grand a month almost overnight. You know what I mean? Like it's so quick. And it's similar to what you mentioned around the control aspect. You have the lever. You know what I mean? Like you're pulling on that thing, and you were like 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and you can keep ratcheting that thing up. So I think it's interesting. It's definitely a very unique time. I think it's a time where people shouldn't ignore what's happening on TikTok, and they shouldn't ignore and continue down. Like it's like if we look at the history and we go, okay, so the kind of like scammy brands that used to sell product with shitty ads, they're gone. You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, got it. So that's the one extreme. And then on the other extreme, we have these people that have like the full personal brands, and they just like sell product through organic, and they only like, build their audience and talk about all these amazing things. It's like, that's the other extreme. It's working quite well, right? And so it's like, those are kind of like the two, North Star, and then where we've come from. So it's kind of like somewhere in the middle. If you take some of like this extreme of people building the personal brand, people building the audience, and then you take some of the lessons from the past of like, let's not try and, just spin up crappy content because it's going to look pretty shit. And then you land in the middle somewhere. I'm like, that's a pretty safe bet. So let's take some founder-led content. Let's do some of the kind of quick, rapid turnaround things that you can with paid media. And I think somewhere in the middle there is probably a safe position.
Absolutely. You need to look at everything. So if I was launching, I'm really looking at, you're going to wall. So organic content, testimonials, UGC, product demo, I'll do everything. I'll just make sure that it's positioned in a strategic manner. TikTok for organic, that's probably what I will do. And then run the ads in Meta so that you can get that stability of decision making. So both, you can do both. If you're someone that's working like, hey, I have my own, or you like working with a full-time job and you don't want people to see you, you don't have to do that. I'm just telling you that
Yes.
potentially you can join your business without having to do that sacrifice. You can still, do really well. But if you
Yeah.
want to do this and you're good in terms of just like good in front of the camera, or you actually just want to push an edge in terms of coming to this war with more weapons, you want to be dangerous, I would say, then you can fund the content and position yourself, which again, it's an edge.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to what you just mentioned there. But I think the phrase that I really like around this is in the tech world. I think they talk about this a lot, where it's just like if we can, we must. Because like if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. That's kind of like the philosophy behind like like ChatGPT as they're or any of these like tech platforms at the moment. As they're building these companies, they're like, geez, if we don't release this feature, China's going to do it.
Yeah,
It's like, so it's like, and it's kind of similar. It's like if you're launching a brand and you have some kind of like, unique story, you have some kind of like, perhaps like reason to listen to you, and you can share the story, it's like you really must do that, because if you don't, someone else will do it and they'll start to actually get your customers. So I think that's probably a good way to think about it as well. It's like, have all the tools at your disposal, use the ones that you can, that you have the capacity and resources to, based on your situation, and then at least know the cards that you have available to you in the game. Because I think that's the key thing. People go into this and they go, oh, I'm just going to post on TikTok, or I'm just going to run meta ads. You know what I mean? And so I think if you know the lay of the land, you can go, oh, got it. I'm going to do some of that. I'm going to do some of that. You know,
And
yeah.
that's why we do the coaching. It's actually true. Every person is different. Like I've worked with some clients where they have this edge. Looking at all the resources, almost like doesn't make sense to even do something else. And I've seen cases where it's the opposite. Like you don't have the resources, you don't have the content. So strategy, it's always what I would like kind of position into decision making. Like, is
Mm,
it a strategy? And that's how you can make those decisions. It's really seeing what's fit for you to win the war. So it's like really strategy.
Very, very good conversation here. What would you say, Hammond, from the maybe the paid ads perspective? What would be like the 2 or 3 kind of like key things that you think people really need to consider quite closely, or I guess like if people are listening and they're like, I'm thinking about which like TikTok or the paid ads, like what would be a few of the things that you might say, like if this is your situation, if this is what you've got going on, and these are the requirements that you might need to pay attention to in relation to pushing on paid ads, what would those things be?
So first, run the ad. That's by default. Like I'm always gonna say this, run the ad. You need to get into
Yeah,
that part. That's not something questionable in my opinion. You need to do it. Now, you're doing content either way. Like you need to do content. So for me, the fact that
yeah,
you're doing it already, like why wouldn't you push it on organic and see how it's performing? So by default, run the ad, look at Meta and TikTok. What's your advantage? TikTok, probably you have good organic positioning, and Meta,
mm,
probably you have a good and stable algo. So in terms of paid ads. So what would I do? I would go and have content done by default. Content is king, and I will push it in paid ads and repurpose in organic to see the performance and do exactly what you mentioned. A winner in the organic would give me a strong signal to push in the paid ad, so I can kind of prioritize. And keep in mind that this is something I mentioned in my calls, and we do this in the coaching and strategy.
mm,
I use 10% of the content I have. Like I would build a lot of ideas, a lot of content. I would use 10%, and I would keep the rest in terms of like options for me to leverage. So
mm,
if you're running your content and you're almost like pushing 5 creators because you worked on 5 creators, you probably are at, I would say, capacity. You need to have like at least I would say more twice, like probably 10% is my golden
yeah,
number, but you need to have much more content. And some brands, they feel like that's not healthy. Sometimes it's not healthy if you're not using, let's say, 10%, 20% of your content. But if you are, just doing 5 creators, publishing 5 creators, you're probably not doing enough content. So that ratio is very important in my opinion. And I would say the healthy
mm,
one in e-com would be about 10, 20. If you're a personal brand, probably 50, because
yeah.
you need to use more content. You can't just use 10% because you need to have much more, I would say, space and also work on more content to convince, I would say, probably your audience to buy your product. So I would look at it from that perspective.
And I think the thing that I'm speaking about this from like a perhaps like organic, maybe like TikTok first approach a little bit. But the thing that people also need to know, like we had one of these experts come and speak at our events recently, and so he said that in the Australian market, if you want to be effective with content in terms of organic, you need to be posting no less than like 50 times a month, right? So it's like 1.5 times a day, essentially, or more, you're posting content. So it's like almost 2 times a day you're posting on the platform
Probably
consistently.
multiply this by 10.
And the thing is, which I thought was shocking, he said that if you're not consistent with the content that you post, I think it was for more than like 4 weeks or 6 weeks, as in like you post for like, I don't know, 3 months straight, consistently every day, and then you have like a break, which some people do. They go away, they go on holiday, whatever it might be. You get put into the banned TikTok like mud pit, essentially. And he's like, I've never seen someone get out of that. So it's like, if you've done that, right, and you've posted consistently for like 3 months, 4 months, you're building a bit of an audience, and then you life gets in the way, something happens, you need to, I'm not sure, reprioritize something else, you'll get straight into the mud pit, you know? And I think that's the thing that people need to know as well is like the pressure, again, of becoming a creator. It means it's almost like a full-time thing. You know what I mean? Like there's no days off. You know what I mean? You got to be very loyal to your audience. You have to make sure you're showing up multiple times a day on that platform to be able to like showcase to them like this is what I'm doing, because it makes sense. It's like if TikTok's going to prioritize you and push you in front of their audience, then it's like they need you to remain consistent. And so it's like they're not going to continue doing that if you stop being consistent. So it makes a lot of sense. But I think that's one thing that, you know, people need to know as well is like just because you've, you know, posted content for a few months and you're starting to build an audience and you've sold out on a few products a couple of times over, it's like you will get penalized if you are not consistent. And I think that's the challenging part, because it might seem like a small thing, like creating a bit of content here, posting, but it's like anything. Like, have you ever tried to wake up every single day at the same time and do the same thing, regardless if it's Saturday or Sunday, or you're traveling, or you've got a little kid that needs to be fed, or you've got your grandparents that come over? It's like, it's very hard. I remember some years ago, like I did this thing in one of my communities, this was like 5-6 years ago. And I would wake up every single morning in this one community that I had, and I would do like a Facebook Live, right? And I did this for like 2 years straight, every single, without one day missed. And I swear I was like, the amount of like weight that doing a 4 to 5 minute, maybe like 6 minute Facebook Live in the community every single day, I was like this is a lot. And it's like 4 minutes, right? But it's like, we're driving somewhere. I'm having an argument with my wife. This thing's going on. We're traveling over here. I've got this bad stuff happening that I need to deal with. I've got this family situation going on. It's like, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You need to perform. And so that's the other part to it as well that I think is like, it's like the unknown like debt that people perhaps don't understand of being a creator or being someone that's seen online is like, it doesn't go away. You might have this audience and they're like, wow, this is amazing. These people, they all like what I've got. But it's like, the pressure of needing to consistently perform is a lot as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the bar is very high, particularly when you
It
see
is.
people live 24 hours sometimes. So you're competing
Exactly.
against full-time influencers, and then they're really like not gaming the system. They're just pushing content consistently, new
Correct.
quality content. So you're competing with really, I would say, people that are live. Think about them like 24 hours. They're working for the platform. So can you compete content? So if you tell me you're doing one ad or one creative a day, probably you're not even in the, I'd say, like kind of like the standards or even the minimum to get there. So it's really a game
Agreed.
of volume, and it's very challenging being consistent doing this every single day, not missing one day. So that's challenging.
Very, very, very interesting times. I think this is a conversation that we'll continue probably like opening up and having over and over again, because I think it will continue to change, and I think the strategies that we use inside of the community, the way that we are observing and helping brands inside of the community, I think we will continue to because the thing is, we have stories on both sides of the equation here. Take Reese, for example, no audience, no personal brand, straight paid media, 0 to whatever it is, a few 100,000. And then we've got other people who have just gone organic only, and they've gone and scaled. So I think we will continue to take some of these learnings and take some of these strategies from what we're doing in our brands, from what we're seeing in terms of like our clients' brands, and we'll be able to share this and have more relevant conversations about this on a constant basis. So I think this is an ongoing loop here, but this has been very, very interesting, challenging, and I think the different perspectives are neither like this is absolute right, this is absolute wrong. I think there's so many kind of like dependencies, and it's like, if this, then that makes sense. If this, then that makes sense. So there's a lot of, yeah, exactly. Very, very good conversation, Hammond. I really, really enjoyed this. Now, look, if you listen to this and you're also enjoying some of the content we're putting out, and you want perhaps some additional help, maybe with your brand, or you want to help to, increase your sales by using some of these strategies, Hammond's on in the community like multiple times a day. We have a
Yes.
lot of this stuff that happens inside the community. Yeah, if you want to share, Hammond, a little bit about what we do maybe inside the community that you think that might be helpful for people, I think that would be great.
Absolutely. So first, like we're managing ads and looking at those strategies every single day. So the community, we regroup, look at what's working, what's not
Mm,
working. You're actually seeing other brands, owners, they're operating and sharing with you what they're doing. And this is like our positioning is how can we give you that strategy, that high ROI, not
mm,
just random strategies based on what's working today, not again
yeah,
something 5 years ago or you like strategy on YouTube. It's really others are doing. So you're coming in the community where every person is actually looking at, what's working and we're sharing and kind of building momentum from that. And if you're in the mastermind, you have access to more resources. So we're actually pushing
mm,
you to I would say almost like get that result faster than any person. And if you're in the ecom private, which is a whole other level where we actually help you run the ads and we take that like entire process, and that's like those are the tiers right now. So I would really look at if you're looking to build an e-commerce store, regardless of the levels, or you have
mm,
an e-commerce store that's doing 50K plus a month. That's another ecom private level that we can manage and kind of help you scale. Those are
yeah.
two, I would say, kind of like layers of our work in the community.
Yeah, love it. Very good. Very excited for the continued growth of this podcast. We've got some great things happening in the future. Got some great guests that are going to be coming on here. We've got a lot of awesome brands we're working on. So if you enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And Hammond, I look forward to having another conversation next week and continuing to share some of the things that are happening and evolving in this rapidly changing environment that we operate in. So always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. See you soon. I'm always excited to share what we're doing in the community and kind of giving a feel of this is what we're seeing, the signals, the actions that we can leverage this in the podcast and help others.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. See you soon.
See you soon.
Let me press this.